Hi Niharika, good morning. Could you please open the PPT with the list of questions on user variable chat and walk me through the question by question?
Yes, Divya, sure. I'm sharing my PPT. Here is the PPT. Today's topic is user variables. Coming to user variables acts as a filter in forms, enabling users only to focus on certain members. We use the user variables in the following artifacts in data forms, in runtime prompts, in business rules, and in SmartView. We'll look into it one by one. What is the use of user variables? User variables can restrict. User variables acts as a filter which can enable the users only to focus on certain forms. What is the difference between the user variables and the substitution variables? The difference between the user variables and substitution variables are substitution variables acts as a it acts as the change will appear to the complete complete application, whereas the user variables only the change will impact on the particular user only. So that is the difference. Which use case do we use user variables over substitution variables? We use the user variables over substitution variables because the user variables provide an access to focus only certain members only certain members that will enable the user to focus on that particular member. So we prefer user variables over substitution variables. Can you show me how to create a user variable from the following use cases? Yes, sure. Use case one, assume user one is the owner of any two entities. Assign those two entities as values to the entity dimension. So we'll go to the creation of user variables. First I'm going to the application, log in through the credentials and go to the variable section. And here we create the user variables here by clicking the plus icon. We'll select the dimension. In use case one, it is said that to select the dimension of entity. So I'm selecting the dimension entity, and here I'm selecting the member. I'm giving the name as ENT and user variable. I'm selecting the member from the ellipsis. I'm giving here France and UK. These two entities has been selected and save it. The records has successfully saved. After this, we go to the user preferences and select the user variables here. Here for the entity, we'll select the member. We have selected two. We'll work on this one UK and select OK and save it. Your user preferences has been saved. Okay. Then we'll go to the PPT again. Can you reuse any of the data forms and show me how to use the user variable as per use case one from slide 3? Yes, we'll navigate to the forms. We'll see how we can see user variables in forms. I'm selecting the predefined one, which is created earlier, and editing it and selecting it. Here we can see that the entity has been already selected, the predefined one, without the user variables. This is a hard code one. I'm removing this and selecting the user variable entity, which we have just created now. Okay. And save. This is the one. User variable. Can you explain how user one can access the data form which is created based on the above question in detail of how entities are restricted to the two entities of ownership? Yes, for this we have selected the user variable, right? That's why the entities are restricted to only. To do so, the tools preferences. Yes, just a minute. Let it not save. Just to look at it. Yes, here we can see that the user variable for the UK has been shown here. As we have selected the user preferences as UK EN02, this entity we have selected, it is shown here. And should user one supposed to access any of the entities other than two entities which she owns in the data form? No, other than two entities which you have selected, user cannot access other forms. Can you show me how to enable a dynamic user variable? Yes. So for this, we have to go to the forms again. And selecting this form. As I given here entity, go to the other options, and here we have to enable the dynamic user variables. Then we will get the user variables which we have created there, and we can select the entity which I have created and selecting and saving it. Yes, we'll preview it. Here we can see that dynamic user variable has been shown here. We'll close this and we'll get it back to the PPT. Take any parent entity as an example. Show how only the children of that parent entity are filtered in the data form. For this, I'm going to the data card and selecting this. Here we can see that the user variables which I have created here, it has appeared here. From here, we can select the entity which are restricted to the user one. We can one can work on this and after that, if you want to work on this, we can select this and click OK. Then it will change to this. This is of the parent entity. When the data form is saved, the BR should only run in the content of entity selection mail. For this, again, go to the form section. Forms folder and the predefined and go to the business rules. Here we can set the users members on the form. Then we have selected there these members. Then we can click it here and the business rule will run only on these forms, on this member selected. Like that we can run the business rules. And coming to the PPT again. Usage of user variables in RTP runtime prompt. Can we use the user variables in our runtime prompt? If yes, can you limit the user in the RTP to be able to restrict user one from accessing the entities other than she owns? Use this RTP in the BR business rule. It shows me how it works. Yes, sure. For this, we have to navigate to the navigator and in the create and manage section, we'll click on the rules. The calculation manager will be open. And here we click on the actions and we'll click on the variable designer. And here the runtime prompt can be created on global level or in application level or cube level. I'm creating this in a global level and click on the global and click on the actions here and create a new one. I'm creating the runtime prompt for user variable ENT and string I'm taking as member. Dimension for entity, select the dimension entity and click on the RTP so that the limits will be shown. And here I'm giving the user variable as %ENT, selecting it, copying it and enter the prompt, select the entity. Select the entity and save this variable as a runtime prompt has been saved successfully. And this runtime prompt will place it in the rule section. For this rule to be run, I've already created a rule here. rule 2. You can open this rule 2 by double clicking on it, and we'll write the script over here. Usage of we're going to the PPT. Usage of user variables in BR. Can you show me how to use the user variables in BR? Business rules. Can you explain the advantage does the usage of user variable over substitution variable? Can you explain which of the following approach is recommended? Yes, we are now creating this user variable in business rule, and the advantages of this advantages of using user variable over substitution variable in BR, because we'll create the runtime prompt, so we can select it from there directly by clicking the one click. Can you explain which of the following approach is recommended or not recommended for using entity in business rule? Please explain why if you can. Hard coding entity is a normal entity manual. We need to select everything by one. Using user variable of entity, we can select it by this. I will show you in the navigation, this one. Using a substitution variable of entity, this is a substitution variable will only be for a period and the year, not for the entity. Using RTP is the best choice I recommended, because it will we can click only the certain members which we want to use by clicking in the one click with using the RTP. We'll go to the navigation, and here I've read the script. I'm giving the user variable as a entity, and here I'm giving the RTP rule. ENT. I'm saving this. And validating it to check any errors are there in. If any warnings or errors are shown here, it will reflect in the background. There are no errors, so we'll deploy it here. By deploying it, this will reflect in the business rule in the application. The deployment was successful. Now we'll go to the We'll go to the application and go to the navigator and click on the rules. Here we can see the rule 2 has been here there. We click on the launch, and we can see the RTP prompt as which we have created here, and we can select from here directly the members which we want to use. We have selected as user preferences is on the EN01 France, so that is appeared here. This is of the RTP prompt, and if you want a user variable to select it, we can select from here also by selecting the members under substitution under user variables. And here from here we can select a member which we want to work on it. This is of the business rule. Coming to the PPT. Here we can this is the fourth one, which using user variables in SmartView. I'll show you how to use a user variable in SmartView. Click on, we'll open the Excel. And go to the SmartView panel. And SmartView, select the SmartView. Log in through the credentials. and select the predefined form which you have already created. And click on the ad hoc options. So now here we need to give the entity, or so we have some user variable. I'm selecting ampersand entity and entering it and refreshing it. We can see here the member which I have selected there as shown here. This is also in the smart view, and we come to the PPT again. In this summary, we have completed the use of user variables in data forms, in runtime prompts, in business rule, and in smart view. Thank you. This is from my end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Niharika.
Thank you.